Ethan lived on a big farm with lots of animals and fields of golden wheat. He was a kind man with a warm smile, but since his wife passed away, the farm felt awfully lonely. He missed having someone to share his days with, someone to help him with the chores, and most importantly, someone to be a mother to his sweet little girl, Lily. Lily was the sunshine in his life, but Ethan knew she needed more than just him. He wasn't looking for just any wife, though. He wanted someone with a good heart, someone who would love Lily as her own. He worked hard every day, from sunrise to sunset, taking care of the animals and the land. But at night, when Lily was asleep, the silence of the farmhouse felt heavy. He longed for laughter and companionship. He dreamed of a family filled with love and happiness, but he didn't know how to find it. The nearby town didn't offer much in the way of suitable partners for a lonely farmer. Ethan hoped for a solution, something to change the course of his and Lily's life. One day, a poster fluttering on the town's notice board caught Ethan's eye: bride auction, find your perfect wife. Ethan scoffed at first. It seemed like a strange and old-fashioned way to find a partner. But then he thought about Lily. He thought about the empty chairs at the dinner table and the way Lily would sometimes ask about having a mom again. He wasn't necessarily looking for a wife, not in the romantic, storybook kind of way. What he truly needed was help. The farm was a lot of work for one person, and he wanted someone to share the load. More importantly, he wanted a loving woman to care for Lily, someone who could teach her things and be a guiding presence in her life. He imagined a woman baking cookies with Lily, reading her bedtime stories, and helping her with her hair. The idea of the auction became less absurd. Perhaps, just perhaps, he could find someone who needed a home as much as he and Lily needed help and companionship. He decided to go, not with high hopes, but with a sliver of possibility in his heart. Clara stood on the auction stage, her heart pounding like a drum. She was a strong and independent woman, but circumstances had forced her into this degrading situation. Her family's farm had fallen into debt, and this auction was their only hope of survival. But Clara didn't want to be anyone's bride, especially not a stranger's. Her spirit bristled at the thought of being bought and sold like livestock. She wore a simple, faded dress, her dark hair pulled back tightly, hiding her beauty. She refused to smile, her eyes flashing defiance at the crowd of men assessing her. She dreamed of running away, of escaping this nightmare. But she knew she couldn't. Her family was depending on her. She had to be brave, even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness. The auctioneer's voice boomed through the hall, each word a hammer blow to her pride. She clenched her fists, trying to control the tremor in her hands, and waited for the ordeal to begin. She felt trapped, like a bird in a cage, longing for the freedom to fly. Ethan watched Clara from the back of the hall. He saw the sadness in her eyes, the way she held her chin high despite her obvious discomfort. He wasn't like the other men, leering and shouting bids like they were buying a horse. He saw a woman trapped in a terrible situation, and something inside him stirred. He hadn't planned on bidding. He just wanted to observe, to see if there was anyone he felt a connection with. But as the auctioneer started the bidding for Clara, Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness. He couldn't explain it, but he couldn't bear the thought of her ending up with someone who wouldn't treat her with kindness and respect. Without thinking, he raised his hand. The auctioneer's eyes lit up. "Do I hear $20? Ethan nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. Other men started bidding too, but Ethan was determined. He kept raising his hand, higher and higher, until finally, the auctioneer slammed the gavel. Sold. To Mr. Ethan Miller for $50. Clara looked at him in disbelief, her eyes wide with confusion and a hint of fear. Ethan had just bought a bride, and he had no idea what he was going to do next. The ride to Ethan's farm was silent and tense. Clara sat stiffly in the wagon, her arms crossed, staring straight ahead. She barely acknowledged Ethan's attempts at conversation, offering only curt, one-word answers. She couldn't understand why he had bought her. Was he like the other men, wanting a servant or worse. She imagined a life of drudgery and unhappiness, and her heart sank. When they arrived at the farm, Clara was even more apprehensive. The farmhouse was large and well kept, but it felt foreign and unwelcoming. Ethan led her inside, and Clara couldn't help but notice the warmth and the smell of freshly baked bread. A little girl with bright eyes and pigtails ran towards them. "Papa," she cried, throwing her arms around Ethan's legs. Ethan smiled down at her. "Lily, this is Clara. She's going to be staying with us for a while." Clara braced herself for Lily's reaction, but the little girl simply stared at her with curiosity. Clara managed a weak smile, but inside, she felt a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. This was her new life, and she wasn't sure she was ready for it. That first week was difficult. Clara made it clear she wasn't happy. She kept to herself, ate her meals in silence, and avoided eye contact with Ethan and Lily. She slept in the spare room, as far away from Ethan as possible. She helped with some chores, but her movements were mechanical and devoid of any enthusiasm. She was polite, but distant, a ghost in their home. One evening, Ethan found her sitting on the porch swing, staring out at the fields. He sat beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. "Clara," he said gently, "I know this isn't what you wanted. I understand you're angry and unhappy. But I promise you, I didn't bring you here to be a servant. I saw something in you, something special. And I thought maybe we could help each other." Clara didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Ethan sighed and stood up. "Just, give it some time," he said. "That's all I ask." He left her alone with her thoughts, hoping that somehow, someday, she would see the kindness in his heart. Ethan kept his word. He didn't pressure Clara, didn't demand anything of her. He simply treated her with respect and kindness, offering a gentle smile and a helping hand whenever she needed it. He made sure she had everything she needed, but he also gave her space to be alone and process her feelings. He talked to her about the farm, about Lily, about his life, sharing his hopes and dreams without expecting anything in return. Slowly, Clara began to notice these small acts of kindness. She saw how hard Ethan worked, how much he loved Lily, and how genuinely good-hearted he was. She realized he wasn't like the other men at the auction. He wasn't trying to control her or take advantage of her. He was just a lonely man who needed help and companionship, just like she did. Her resistance didn't vanish overnight, but the icy wall around her heart began to crack, ever so slightly. Ethan's patience was like sunshine, slowly melting away the winter of her unhappiness. It was Lily who truly began to melt Clara's heart. The little girl, oblivious to the awkwardness between Clara and Ethan, saw only a new friend. Lily would follow Clara around the farm, chattering about her toys, her favorite animals, and her dreams of becoming a famous artist. At first, Clara would simply nod politely, but Lily's persistence was unwavering. One day, Lily asked Clara to help her build a birdhouse. Clara hesitated, but seeing the hopeful look in Lily's eyes, she couldn't refuse. As they worked together, hammering and sawing, Clara found herself smiling. Lily's infectious laughter filled the air, and for the first time since arriving at the farm, Clara felt a flicker of genuine joy. Lily started asking Clara for help with her hair, to read her bedtime stories, and to play games with her. Slowly, Clara found herself drawn into Lily's world, forgetting her resentment and finding a sense of purpose in caring for the little girl. Lily's innocent love was a powerful force, weaving Clara into the fabric of their family life, one giggle and hug at a time. As Clara spent more time on the farm, she started to take on more responsibilities. She helped Ethan with the animals, feeding the chickens and milking the cows. She worked in the garden, planting seeds and weeding the rows of vegetables. At first, it was just something to do, a way to fill her days. But as she worked, she began to discover a sense of satisfaction in the labor. She enjoyed the feel of the earth in her hands, the warmth of the sun on her face, and the quiet rhythm of the farm. She found a sense of accomplishment in seeing the vegetables grow, the animals thrive, and the farm prosper. It reminded her of her own family's farm, the one they had lost. She realized that she missed the hard work, the connection to the land, and the sense of purpose it gave her. The farm wasn't just Ethan's livelihood, it was a living, breathing thing that needed care and attention. And Clara found that she enjoyed being a part of it. She was contributing, she was needed, and she was making a difference. A shadow fell over Ethan's farm in the form of Jedediah Blackwood, a wealthy and ruthless farmer who coveted Ethan's land. Jedediah had tried to buy Ethan out for years, but Ethan always refused. Now, Jedediah resorted to underhanded tactics. First, Ethan's well was poisoned, threatening his livestock. Then, his fences were cut, allowing his cattle to wander onto Jedediah's property, resulting in hefty fines. Finally, a fire broke out in the barn, destroying a significant portion of Ethan's winter hay supply. Ethan was devastated, feeling like everything he had worked for was slipping away. He knew Jedediah was behind it, but he couldn't prove it. Clara, seeing Ethan's despair, stepped up to help. She used her knowledge of farming to devise a plan to protect the remaining livestock, organize volunteers to repair the fences, and find alternative sources of hay. The crisis forced them to work side by side, relying on each other's strengths and sharing the burden of their struggle. The shared adversity forged a new bond between them, stronger than any auction or obligation. During the crisis, Clara saw a side of Ethan she hadn't seen before. He was strong and resilient, working tirelessly to protect his farm and his family. He didn't give up, even when things seemed hopeless. But it wasn't just his strength that impressed her. It was his compassion. Even as he faced ruin, he remained kind and considerate, always putting Lily's needs first and treating everyone with respect. Clara witnessed him comforting a distraught neighbor whose own crops had been damaged by the fire, and she saw him sharing his meager supplies with those who were worse off than him. She realized that Ethan wasn't just a hard-working farmer, he was a good man, a truly good man. As she watched him navigate the crisis with such grace and integrity, her feelings towards him began to change. The gratitude she felt for his kindness transformed into admiration, and then into something more. She began to see him not just as the man who had bought her, but as a man she could respect, a man she could trust, and perhaps, a man she could even love. One evening, after a long day of repairing fences, Ethan and Clara sat on the porch, exhausted but content. Lily was asleep inside, and the farm was quiet. The air was filled with the scent of wood smoke and the distant sound of crickets. Ethan turned to Clara, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Clara," he said softly. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Clara looked at him, her heart aching with a mix of emotions. I wanted to help," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Clara," he began, "I know this isn't the life you wanted. And I know I can't ever make up for what happened at the auction. But I want you to know that I care about you." Clara's eyes widened. She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "Ethan," she said, I understand why you did what you did. And I'm grateful. But I'm also scared. I've been hurt before." Ethan reached out and gently took her hand. "I know," he said. "But I promise, I would never hurt you. I just want you to be happy." In that moment, they shared a look, a deep and meaningful connection that transcended their awkward beginnings. They saw each other, really saw each other, for the first time. They were both vulnerable, both hurting, but both willing to open their hearts to the possibility of something more. From that day forward, Clara's demeanor changed. She was no longer the cold, distant woman who had arrived at the farm. She started to show small signs of affection towards Lily and Ethan. She would brush Lily's hair in the mornings, braid it with colorful ribbons, and tell her stories. She would help Ethan with his chores, offering a smile or a playful nudge as they worked side by side. She started cooking family meals, filling the house with the aroma of hearty stews and freshly baked pies. They would sit around the dinner table, laughing and talking, creating small moments of domestic happiness. One evening, as Ethan read Lily a bedtime story, Clara sat beside them, her hand resting gently on Lily's back. Ethan looked up at her, his eyes filled with love and gratitude. Clara smiled back, her heart swelling with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. These small gestures, these quiet moments of connection, were building a foundation of love and trust, transforming the farmhouse from a place of obligation into a home filled with genuine affection. The farm was slowly becoming a family. Jedediah Blackwood, enraged by Ethan's resilience and Clara's resourcefulness, escalated his efforts. He hired a group of thugs to vandalize the farm, destroying crops and terrorizing the animals. One afternoon, while Ethan and Clara were in town buying supplies, Jedediah's men broke into the farmhouse. Lily, who was home alone, hid in the barn, terrified. The thugs ransacked the house, stealing valuables and setting small fires. When Ethan and Clara returned, they were met with a scene of chaos and destruction. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he searched for Lily. Clara, her face pale with fear, helped him scour the property. Finally, they found her hiding in the barn, huddled beneath a pile of hay, shaking uncontrollably. Jedediah's actions had crossed a line, putting Lily in grave danger. Ethan was filled with a burning rage, but Clara knew they had to focus on protecting Lily and securing the farm. The stakes had never been higher, and they knew they had to work together to overcome this latest challenge. That night, Ethan and Clara stayed up late, patching up the farmhouse and comforting Lily. They knew they couldn't rely on the law to protect them, they had to protect themselves. Ethan, with his strong arms and unwavering determination, boarded up the windows and reinforced the doors. Clara, with her quick wit and sharp mind, devised a plan to catch Jedediah and his men in the act. They set traps around the farm, rigged up an alarm system using old pots and pans, and took turns keeping watch throughout the night. They were both scared, but they were also resolute. They would not let Jedediah destroy their home or hurt their family. The next night, Jedediah's men returned, expecting an easy victory. But Ethan and Clara were ready for them. They sprang the traps, setting off the alarm and catching the thugs by surprise. A fierce struggle ensued, but Ethan and Clara fought bravely, defending their farm with everything they had. In the end, they managed to subdue the thugs and hold them until the sheriff arrived. Jedediah's reign of terror was finally over. In the aftermath of the crisis, as the sheriff led Jedediah away in handcuffs, Ethan and Clara stood on the porch, exhausted but safe. Lily was asleep in her bed, finally at peace. Ethan turned to Clara, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and something more profound. "Clara," he said softly, I don't know what I would do without you. You're the strongest, bravest woman I know." Clara looked at him, her heart overflowing with love. "Ethan," she replied, her voice trembling, "I came here against my will, but I've found a home here. And a family. And I've fallen in love with you." Ethan's eyes widened in surprise and joy. He reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "Clara," he said, "I love you too. More than words can say." He leaned down and kissed her, a tender and passionate kiss that sealed their love. The farm, once a symbol of loneliness and obligation, had become a sanctuary of love and hope. And Ethan and Clara, two people brought together by circumstance, had found their happily ever after in the most unexpected way. They were finally a family, bound not by an auction, but by a love that was stronger than any adversity. The next morning, Ethan knelt before Clara, holding a simple, handmade ring fashioned from a piece of wire. "Clara," he said, his voice full of emotion, "I know this isn't much, but it's all I have to offer. Will you marry me? Not because of an auction, not because of obligation, but because we love each other." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, Ethan," she whispered. "Yes, I will." It wasn't a proposal born of desperation or necessity, but a genuine expression of love and commitment. They decided to have a real wedding, a celebration of their love surrounded by their friends and neighbors. They wanted to show the world that their love was real, that it had blossomed from the most unlikely of circumstances, and that it was stronger than any adversity. They began planning the wedding together, filling the farmhouse with laughter and excitement. Lily, of course, was thrilled, eagerly offering her opinions on everything from the flowers to the cake. This time, it wasn't about fulfilling a need or filling a void, it was about celebrating a love that had transformed their lives. The wedding day dawned bright and beautiful. The farm was transformed, decorated with wildflowers and ribbons. Neighbors brought food and gifts, filling the air with laughter and celebration. Clara wore a simple white dress, made with love by the women of the town. She looked radiant, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Lily, dressed in a flower girl dress, skipped around, scattering petals and giggling with delight. As Clara walked down the aisle, Ethan's heart swelled with love. He saw not the reluctant bride he had bought at auction, but the strong, compassionate woman who had become his partner, his best friend, and the love of his life. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, filled with promises of love, loyalty, and mutual respect. As they exchanged vows, tears streamed down their faces. They were finally united, not by obligation, but by a love that had overcome every obstacle. The wedding was a testament to their journey, a celebration of their unlikely love story, and a promise of a happy future together. They kissed, sealing their vows, and the crowd erupted in applause. They were truly, finally, a family. Years passed, and the farm flourished. Ethan and Clara worked side by side, their love growing stronger with each passing day. Lily grew into a bright and beautiful young woman, a testament to the love and care she had received from both Ethan and Clara. The farmhouse, once filled with silence and loneliness, now echoed with laughter and joy. Clara never forgot her past, but she embraced her present, finding happiness and fulfillment in her life with Ethan and Lily. She learned that love could blossom in the most unexpected circumstances, that even a reluctant bride could find her happily ever after. And Ethan, the lonely single dad who had only wanted help on the farm, found a love that was richer and more profound than he had ever imagined. They had built a family, not out of obligation or necessity, but out of love, respect, and a shared commitment to each other. Their story became a legend in the town, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, love can find a way. And so, Ethan, Clara, and Lily lived happily ever after, proving that unexpected love can indeed inspire.